In one verse of the Quran, God says, "We didn't reveal this Quran so that you will find it difficultly. We revealed it only to believers so that they can eat." So it is not for difficulty. If you feel difficulty, then there's something wrong there, because there's no difficulty in Islam. There's no difficulty in the Quran. The Islam is ease. I seek refuge in God from the accursed Satan. God doesn't will any difficulty for you. God wills ease for you. In another verse of the Quran, God says, God does not will any difficulty. God doesn't persecute people, but people persecute themselves. Yes, this is really a very important verse. For instance, they do not listen to music. For instance, women can wear makeup, they can wear revealing clothes, they can have fun, but they are persecuting themselves. For instance, they can pluck their eyebrows and look more beautiful, more pretty, but they persecute by not doing this. For instance, they have hair loss. If they wear a wig, she will look better. But there's a ban on it. They do not wear a wig, so they don't look good. This is how they persecute themselves, because people mock her. They say a verse. So all through her lives, she persecutes herself. In another verse of the Quran, God says, "We will make you successful in what is the easy thing." I'm repeating this verse. "I will make you successful at that thing which is easy for you." This was a loose translation. And the irreligious always look for difficulties. Their life is so complicated. And while they do this, our Lord says, "We didn't prescribe these nonsense superstitions for them, but they prescribed it for themselves, and still they didn't abide by it. Indeed, no bigot can comply with the nonsense that they make up for themselves." You once said that they can do it before my eyes, and I can give any money that they want. They can't do it. They can in no way do it. In another verse of the Quran, God says, "Do not call things lawful or unlawful by just attributing those things." That means that their tongues are inclined to saying the untruth. In another verse of the Quran, God says that some people struggle and they get tired, but that is in vain. And some others are pleased with the efforts they make. This is what God says in the Quran.
Cenab-ı Allah af ve kolaylık yolunu benimse diyor. Sen af ve kolaylık yolunu benimse, uygun olanı örfe emret.
In another verse of the Quran, God says, "You follow the way of forgiveness and ease, and admonish what is in compliance with the tradition and appropriate, and turn yourself from the ignorant ones." So the way of forgiveness is the way of ease. It is making things easier, which is called takfir. Indeed, in the previous religions, there were some difficult provisions. For instance, in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 288, there is this. For instance, in the Judaism, there is the ban on Saturday, and there were many unlawful food. But in Islam, God creates everything easy. He lifted these bans as a blessing, as good news.
Evet, üstündeki ağır yükleri değil mi?
In another verse of the Quran, God says, "Didn't we lift up your burden?" This is addressed to our Prophet. Yes, God reminds it to our Prophet as a blessing. In a hadith, our Prophet says, "Make things easier, do not make them difficult." And in another verse of the Quran, God says, do not make people hate things, just make them love. So despite all these verses and the hadiths, it is incredible that they still have this mindset.
Sonradan Allah Museviliği zorlaştırdı. İslam'da da yeniden kolaylaştırdı.
God praises. He says, the religion of Prophet Abraham was easy, and then he made Judaism difficult, and then he made it easy for Islam. There was a reversion to the religion of Prophet Abraham. So God says that Islam is as easy as the religion of Prophet Abraham. The religion of Prophet Abraham was very easy. For instance, he prayed, there was no oppression over women. People could live by their religion in an easy manner. That religion is called Hanif, and this is also Islam. But in other religions, for instance in Judaism, God made things difficult. That is true. For the messenger, it is stated in the Quran that God lifts the chains and the burdens over the messenger. In another verse of the Quran, God says, we make the religion easy. Will you not be smart enough still? Can you please repeat that hadith once again? Make things easy for people, do not make them difficult. And it continues like this. Give the good news and do not bring any bans. In another verse of the Quran, God says, we made this Quran easy in your language. God says that you can understand the provisions, the prescriptions in it easily. But bigots objected. They think that the Quran is not easy and they can't understand. Well, they should really come to their senses. But in another verse of the Quran, God says that this is the glad tidings to the people who are pious, who have fear of God. And it is a kind of fear for those who insist on their former religion. In another verse of the Quran, God says, I seek refuge in God from the accursed Satan. For those who are the servants of God, there is a clear glad tidings. In another verse of the Quran, God warns people and says, and God also says that people make the religion difficult for themselves. They think they make something unlawful lawful, for instance. While it is lawful, they make it unlawful. So this is how they create scourges for themselves. They change the provisions of the religion. For instance, in Surah Al-Layl, verse 5, God says the following. But as for him who gives out and has taqwa and confirms the good, what is this good? It is the Quran. It is the provision of the God. So we will pave his way to ease. This was the 7th verse of Surah Al-Layl. But as you notice, God always mentions about the ease. For instance, God creates some sort of easiness for us, and He makes us successful in it. But those who seek difficulty, God makes things difficult for them. They are oppressed. They feel under the burden. So those people who seek an ultra-orthodox way of Islam, then they feel oppressed. So what is the point of changing the religion of God? The religion of God is very easy. You should live in ease. You should live in joy. God makes it easy for you to attain paradise. But these people, bigots, want to be in scourge. When you make things difficult for yourself, then you go to hell. Once you abide by the easy religion of Prophet Abraham, once you abide by the religion of Islam, which is easy, you go to paradise. But in that difficult religion, that religion of difficulty that you make up for yourself, it is a way that goes to hell, that paves the way to hell. So isn't that some difficulty for
Ki ne
you.
kadar zor olursa o
May
kadar
God
zor olur
open
diye
your
düşünüyorum.
wisdom. May God open your mind.
Mesela Nur Suresi 55'te Cenab-ı Allah
These people are drifted
kendi
into such a
beğendiği dini
scourge
diyor.
because they are
Böyle
under the
kılacak.
influence of
Yok
Satan
arkadaş beğendiği dini demiyor.
and the mushrikun. For
O da
instance,
olsa
in the
sizin beğendiğiniz dini
55th verse of Surah
Allah'ın
An-Nur,
beğendiği
God
din.
says that He will make the
Allah'ın beğendiği
religion
dini
which
bunlar
He
beğenmiyor.
likes prevalent around the world,
Değiştiriyorlar.
not the religion
Onun
of
için
the
Cenab-ı Allah diyor ki
bigots.
Allah'ın
Otherwise, God
beğendiği
would
dinini
say, it
hakim
is
kıl,
your
kılacağım.
religion. I will make your religion be
Yani
prevalent.
Kur'an'la
But this is
İslam'ı,
not the
Kur'an
case. God
İslam'ın
says
hakim
that
kılacağım diyor.
I
Nur
will
Suresi
make
55'te.
the religion
Onun için her yobaz
which
girişim
I like. This is
harbi
what God
kılınmış.
says in the
Her bağırmış
55th verse
girişim
of Surah
harbi
An-Nur.
teşhis sonuçlanıyor. Mesela rahmetli Abdülhamit
That is why all
Kur'an'ın
kinds
Müslümanı
of initiatives by the bigots are
gelinmiş
doomed
oturdu
to
İslam
fail.
anlayışını savunuyor.
All the initiatives of
Yani
bigots
saf
are
Kur'an'a
defeated.
dayalı
For
değil.
instance, Abdulhamid the Sultan.
Gelenekçiydi.
He
Osmanlı da
was not a follower of the Quran. He had a traditionalist way of thinking in terms of religion. His religion was not based on pure
Hiç
Quran.
başarılı olamadı.
And the Ottoman Empire, a great majority of the Ottoman Empire was also traditionalist.
Kendisi zaten.
So God ruined them. God
Peygamber.
ruined the empire,
O yüzden
and
Allah ona acayip
Abdulhamid
başardı.
was not victorious. But our prophet was a true believer. He was a genuine believer.
Sonra bozulma
That
başladı.
is why God
Niye?
made him
Kendi
very
bile
successful.
falan
He defeated
değiştirdi.
everyone. He was
Kendi kafalarında.
amazingly
Yepyeni bir din
amazingly
inşa etti.
successful.
Felaket sardı etrafı.
And the caliphs also followed him. But then in the time of Amavis and the other Islamic communities, new religions were made up and they were ruined. They collapsed.
Hakikaten dini de değiştirdi.
In another verse of the Quran, God says, bring another kind of Quran or change it. Yes, that is what they ultimately do. They indeed bring another Quran for themselves and they change the religion. And the scourges are all around the world right now. They are devastating the entire world.
Ramuzul Hadis'te diyor. 1. cilt sayfa 98. Kimse dine karşı şiddet
Our prophet said, the religion is easy. This is in Ramuz el-Hadith, page 98. No one can make religion difficult, troublesome. Indeed, in this case, the religion will defeat it. He will be defeated in the face of the religion. He will lose his power. He will lose his might. Yes, as you see, Abdulhamid the Sultan and the Ottoman Empire were defeated because they made religion difficult for themselves. Our prophet says, just follow the Quran. Our prophet says, comply with the purity of the religion. But they can't do it. They say, is this kind of religion acceptable? According to them, their religion must be more difficult than theirs, and they feel jealous of Judaism, and they want Islam to be more difficult than Judaism. For instance, the Jews use some cloaks, they use their hats, and women can never be side by side by men. They are not allowed to be together with the men. And this is just the kind of mindset of the traditionalist Muslims. They both groups persecute themselves. They change the religion, and God says that they are insincere. They use a special tone, but they do not abide by the Quran. They just don't do it. They are insincere. While reciting the name of God, they are also insincere. In verse 220 of Surah Al-Baqarah, God says, if God willed, He could make it difficult. But God says that I didn't make it difficult. I made it easy. But these bigots want to make it difficult. They think that it is the difficult religion that gives honor to them. They feel humiliated next to the Jews. I really don't forget one memory of me. I was talking to an Islamic scholar. I told him that the religion Islam is only following the Quran, but he said, may God forbid, then everything would be so easy, he said. He didn't accept such a religion, but what is better than having such a religion? They don't like the religion depicted in the Quran.
küfür yoluna yürümek buzlar üzerinde yürümekten daha zahmetli ve daha tehlikelidir. İman yolu ise diyor suda, havada, ziyada yürümek ve
In Mesnevi Nuriye, it is stated,
gerçek iman.
walking on ice is more difficult, but walking on faith is very easy. It is not difficult. The true faith is not easy. Indeed, this was how Bediüzzaman lived. He lived with joy and he died with joy. Bediüzzaman lost his life while he was struggling in the way of the Quran. So he became a martyr. And this is the best form of death for a person. In one verse of the Quran, God says the following. Notice that the poor religion is in the sight of God. Those who want to corrupt the religion, they say, we do it to please God. But God denies it. God says that these are not the things that I want from you. In another verse of the Quran, God says, do you teach the God his religion? In another verse of the Quran, God says, whoever looks for a religion other than Islam, that religion won't be accepted from him.